Hi, my name is Thais Gibson, and I'm the co-creator of the Personal Development School. So in this part of the anxiety series, where I'm giving you ongoing tips and tools and strategies to really kick anxiety once and for all, I am going to talk to you about cognitive distortions for this video and the next couple of videos so you can understand the different cognitive distortions we have and how they impact the subconscious mind and our emotions, in particular anxiety. So if you haven't already had the opportunity, I suggest going back and watching the other videos because they all sort of lead up to this point. And this will be this ongoing series for you. The videos are quite short, but they're all extremely informative. So take some time to go back through them. So in this part of the series, we are going to discuss cognitive distortions. And the first one we're going to start with is the cognitive distortion of catastrophizing. So what we've realized up until this point in the series, or some really important parts of the series so far, are that when we are feeling anxious, anxiety is basically a feedback mechanism that we have unresolved problems that are creating emotional residue over time in the subconscious mind. And because our brain is wired to complete life experiences and to not carry problems in the background because it's an impediment to survival, that's what our survival brain perceives it as, at least, then what happens is anxiety is there to sort of push those problems to the surface and try to force us into resolution. And what we have to do is be able to dig deep and understand what those problems are and what they're made up of. And then I've given some previous tools and strategies for how to deal with these things. So let's talk about the cognitive distortion of catastrophizing in this light. So catastrophizing is essentially us looking at the worst case scenario of everything. So instead of, just driving to work and maybe being a few minutes late and going, oh no, I'm going to be late and I better call and let somebody know, your brain instead goes into these worst case scenarios. Like, I'm going to be late. Everybody's going to judge me. My boss is going to fire me. I'm going to lose the place that I live in. I'm going to be homeless. I'm going to lose all the people I care about. Like, it'll go into these really strong worst case scenarios. And this is very common for individuals who are struggling with anxiety. So first, what we want to do, let's look at the actual background first, and I'll give you a solution at the end. So you want to know that basically when your brain does this, it creates this whole movie in your mind. You see these characters, you see yourself, you imagine your boss firing you, you see all these pictures. And when your brain is visualizing or imagining something like this, it has a very, very difficult time telling the difference between what's real and what's imagined. Your brain basically reacts to these things as if they're both equally valid. So when you see this movie in your mind and you play this movie, you are living in that moment, in that movie, as if the movie is 100% true. And so all these passing thoughts will create this response as if, like, I just got fired and then I became homeless. And you're living in that reality, even if just for the moment that the movie is playing in your mind. And this is why we can be sitting in the car and we can seriously feel like we are panicking because we're living that situation out. And again, our brain has a very difficult time telling the difference. So we have to realize that while this is going on, we have to be able to put an end to it, stop, witness it, separate ourselves from it, because how many times in a day do you do this to yourself? If you are a chronic catastrophizer, then you might be traumatizing yourself and living out these situations for 5, 10, 20, sometimes 50 times a day for people. They'll replay this image of what if their husband or wife cheats on them, or what if, and they'll replay this story over and over and over again. I was speaking to somebody in a webinar today that was telling me a bit of the story. So it is very, very important that we sit and we start recognizing these patterns as they're playing out and separate ourselves from them. Because even the neurochemicals, the fight and flight response, your cortisol, the neurochemicals that are connected to when you feel those feelings, or that are produced when you feel those feelings because your mind is playing that movie, you are literally hurting your body to a certain degree with all these stress and adrenaline response neurochemicals, okay, like cortisol or norepinephrine. So what we want to be able to do here is separate from this and notice that we are playing this movie out, and then ask yourself, is this even valid? Is this actually even likely at all? 1 to 10, how valid or likely is this situation or scenario? And then we want to put our energy into solving whatever the problem is in the moment with a strategy or a solution, instead of feeding this trajectory of this problem and going down the rabbit hole. Because when we're in the rabbit hole, we can't be in the rabbit hole and trying to solve the problem at the same time. So every moment we spend in the movie in our minds, it's creating all that pain and suffering and negative neurochemical responses and taxing into our body and our sympathetic nervous system. All of those things are preventing us from being solution oriented and finding a strategy to solve the problem. So if it's you're late, call your boss and say, hey, I'm running late. I apologize, but you can't think of doing that when you're too busy in that scary, scary space in your mind. Or if you are in a space where you are, let's say, fearing that something bad's going to happen with your partner, go in the direction of figuring out what the underlying root cause could be that could lead up to that point and work on that. Maybe we're not communicating enough. Maybe we're disconnected and that's what's triggering these thoughts or scary feelings. And then work on reconnecting. Develop a strategy or solution to connect more deeply or to be more vulnerable in your relationship. So whatever the fearful thing is that you are catastrophizing, notice it, separate yourself from it, ask yourself if it's really valid or even likely. Rate it from 1 to 10 if you need to let yourself know, hey, this is very, very unlikely, let's say. And then focus your energy on the solution and change your thinking so that you become solution oriented to solve the problem instead of just fester and feed on the problem itself. Okay, so pay attention to the next videos. In the next videos, I will go through more cognitive distortions and give you some strategies and solutions to work through each one if you're experiencing it.